To the people, brothers, sisters, comrades, and friends. I'm going to start our discussion of political lessons from the Black Panther Party with a dedication. This material is presented in the spirit of strong support for current political prisoners and others who have gone before, especially those who have died while trying to make political change. One extremely important means of commemorating their sacrifices is the careful summing up of the shortcomings as well as the successes of our past attempts at creating liberation organizations in order to help offer today's and future activists a vital foundation upon which to build. After all, in the words of Black Panther Field Marshal George Jackson, when revolution fails, it is the fault of the vanguard parties. My presentation today is focused on evaluating the Black Panther Party and its practice regarding the transformational goal of making revolution successfully. I'm using the tool of scientific socialism to frame this critique since the Panthers considered themselves Marxists for most of their existence. Black Panther symbolism will probably always be with us, as long as there is a fierce, angry reaction by African American people to the subjugation of even parts of our Black community. The conditions for strong attraction among Black youth to the message and legacy of the Panther Party will continue. In these remarks, my use of the terms Panthers and Black Panther Party referred to the organization originating in Oakland, California in October 1966 as the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense and subsequently known as the Black Panther Party. Um, This Black Panther was the most spectacular attempt and failure in the USA of an anti-colonial organization during the 20th century. The Black Panther Party confronted the American empire as an internal national liberation movement. Here I am defining failure as the Panthers being unable to accomplish their stated goals by the time of their demise. In the Panther Minimum Program of 1970, excuse me, Point 10 stated, we want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace, and as our major political objective, a United Nations supervised plebiscite to be held throughout the Black colony in which only Black colonial subjects would be allowed to participate for the purpose of determining the will of Black people as to their national destiny. Clearly, as the Panthers' more substantial aims, clearly this, as well as the Panthers' more substantial aims of ending Black oppression and creating socialism in the USA, were not accomplished. Please note that the terminology used here is in no way meant to be a negative reflection on the dedication, commitment, and great sacrifice of the thousands of members of the Black Panther Party who selflessly served the people during the decade-long era of the party's decline. My choice of time period labels is an attempt to reflect my assessment of the initial thrust of the party as well as the overall course of the group's collective development. The high point of the Panthers was summer and fall 1970, prior to the development of the split between the Oakland headquarters and the New York and Algiers chapters. Huey Newton was just being released from prison after 3 years of the party's Free Huey campaign. The party had exploded from a handful of officers when Huey was arrested in October 1967. The party had become consolidated in over 65 offices, including the international section in Algiers, Algeria. And the party sought to create first a united front against fascism in 1969, and then a united front of the American left. Its call for the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention in 1970, when party membership was near its maximum of well over 5,000. Up through this peak, the party, while developing unevenly, had been mainly growing in membership, influence, geographic locations of offices, and repressive reactions to it by the state. That is, city, state, and federal police and intelligence agencies. In early 71, after the split into the main party faction, that's Oakland, with which had the domination of the National Party apparatus, versus the New York and Algiers faction, also called by some the Newton and Cleaver factions. The main faction continued to identify itself as the Black Panther Party. Meanwhile, members of the New York and Algiers factions faction within the year began to join with other forces advocating revolution, such as the Black Liberation and the Young Lords Party. Now, some Panthers do deny that there was a split, pointing to the expulsion of over 30 from New York and Algiers chapters, but completely ignoring the over 1,000 Panthers that left the Oakland-based national organization within the following year, some of whom joined with the other revolutionary organizations already mentioned. The remaining Black Panther Party, while developing unevenly, mainly declined slowly over the next decade until the expiration of the last party program, the Oakland Liberation School, in 1982. Thus, Panther history, in my mind, clearly divides into two major eras: 1966 to 1970, the Revolutionary Era, and 1971 to 1982, which I call the Era of Decline. Um, I mark the four periods of Panther life history as the founding revolutionary period from October 66 to 68, from the launching of the organization to Huey Newton's trial for the killing of Officer Frey. The national revolutionary period from September 68 through February 71, from the end of Newton's trial to the split. Third, the national period of decline for the Panthers was March 71 to April 73, from the split to the end of Bobby Seale's run for mayor. And fourth, the regional period of decline was from May 73 to June 1982, from Bobby Seale's mayoral defeat to the demise of the last Panther program, the Liberation School. Now, on my website, blackpantheronline.com, there is a handout that engages all of the data in this periodization in a much more comprehensive fashion, because I'm focusing on a little bit different point than the periodization today. This is to frame our discussion. So to best examine the Black Panther Party's revolutionary legacy, I argue that we should look mainly to that national revolutionary period from September 68 to February 71. This time period includes the phenomenal national growth of the Panthers from perhaps 500 at the start of Huey's trial, and I consider this to be a very generous estimate, to between 5 and 10,000 before the split. This period also saw the launching of the people's programs, including the free breakfast program, free medical clinics, free clothing programs, and the Liberation School. These people's programs, after the split, became known as survival programs, with the change in the political line of the Black Panther Party to survival pending revolution. The height of repression of the party by all levels of government, but especially by the FBI's COINTELPRO, also occurred during this national revolutionary period. Finally, during this period, the party first declared itself to be Marxist-Leninist. So what are some of the Panthers' most important contributions? From its initial founding as the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, the party became the Black Power movement poster child for collective or organization self-defense in the USA. All of the popular Panther posters, all the most popular Panther posters from the Revolutionary era included weaponry, such as Huey in the wicker peacock chair holding a spear in one hand and a shotgun in the other. Huey and Bobby armed. Uh, uh, Outside of Panther office, or the numerous weapon graphics of the time by Emory Douglas. As Black communities across the USA increased in number, uh, and intensity from, as rebellions in Black communities across the USA increased in number and intensity from 63 to 68, Panthers presented themselves as the organized response to truly defend the Black community. The original version of Point 7 of the Black Panther Party's 10-point program, a document that was changed several times, read in part, "We want an immediate end to the police brutality and murder of Black people. We believe that we can end police brutality in our Black community by organizing Black self-defense groups that are dedicated to defending our Black community from racist police oppression and brutality." Unfortunately, the Panther strenuous public advocacy, the Panthers' strenuous public advocacy of organizational self-defense also became its Achilles heel as the U.S. mainstream media promoted distortions about Panther activities and intent, which were used by police as cover for their systematic campaign of repression from all levels of the state. During this national period, the party very consistently uh, was very consistently anti-colonialist and anti-imperialist, thoroughly internationalist as we saw it. We embraced Cuba, North Korea, Palestine, and Vietnam as our allies in the revolutionary struggle, along with the African liberation movements. Rank and file cadre carried the Red Book, the quotations from Mao Zedong, in order to be dressed for party work. I should point out that a strong commitment to African liberation support uh, was a feature of the party throughout its existence. In scientific, let me move on here. In scientific socialism, class is a critically important category of analysis. It's important for determining who are the friends of our movement, who are the enemies of our movement, and who are the middle forces that can be pulled in either direction. The Panthers began that use of class by using scientific socialist class categories, including bourgeoisie, working class, and lumpen proletariat, instead of the mainstream social sciences' highly problematic upper, middle, and lower class framework. The Panthers wholeheartedly embraced Frantz Fanon's Wretched of the Earth as highly applicable to the colonized experience of African Americans. The movie Battle of Algiers has often been considered a highly visual illustration of both the Algerian independence movement and Fanon's description of it. The Panthers liberated multiple copies of the film to show, especially Black audiences, in various venues, from campus auditoriums to housing project walls with sheets for screens. The Panthers warmly embraced Fanon's interpretation of the lumpen proletariat as a class with great potential to contribute to a revolution, in contrast to Karl Marx's dismissal of the class as mainly reactionary. And Fanon's justification of revolutionary violence very strongly resonated with Panther conceptions of the necessity of armed struggle. However, the Panthers also had significant shortcomings on how to apply a class analysis, as we will discuss later. Whoops. As a self-proclaimed vanguard party, the Panthers changed their ideology over time from revolutionary nationalism to Marxism to intercommunalism. You see here a Panther PE class using the Red Book. I think this was in Golden Gate Park in 1968. The Panthers publicly embraced some form of scientific socialism for all but the first 2.5 years of the organization's existence. Here, I am categorizing both the Panthers' Marxist-Leninist and intercommunalist Marxist-Leninism and intercommunalism as forms of anti-colonial scientific socialism. In fact, I argue that the Black Panther Party was the first internationally known and copied anti-colonial scientific socialist organization on U.S. soil. The oops, lost my track of my. Oops, here we go. Of course, the People's Programs greatly benefited many Black community members during that time. And in the USA, the free breakfast programs of the Panthers live on in the free national school breakfast and lunch programs for children of families under the so-called poverty line. The People's or Survival programs are one of the best known examples of Panther social practice. But if we are to make sweeping revolutionary change in this neo-colonial world, we must especially learn from the Panthers' mistakes, moving beyond merely noting their progressive but not transformative advances. In my view, the Black Panther Party's single biggest failing was a thoroughgoing lack of democracy. The National Party was organized with a military-like command structure. The Minister of Defense was the party head, followed by the national chairman and other ministers of information, education, culture, field marshals, etc. The regional party structure was very similar, with deputy ministers and deputy chairmen, while local chapters featured defense captains, lieutenants of defense information, education, culture, section and subsection leaders, and so on. While the National Party paid lip service to democratic centralism, it was indeed centralist, but rarely genuinely democratic. While there were individual Panther chapters that attempted to use democracy, empowering the voices of the rank and file was never a national policy. Panthers never had a National Party Congress or regional congresses, which really ought to have been held every 2 years or so to sum up work, both successes and failures, to evaluate the directions of major and minor campaigns, and to consider various proposals for projected success in the organization's next phase of organizing. It is actually hard to overemphasize this shortcoming. While centralism can be a very important means of managing an organization facing repression, such as the Panthers, consistent democracy awakens and releases the initiatives of the rank and file and very significantly allows for the management of honest political differences. The FBI's COINTELPRO, that's counterintelligence program, took tremendous advantage of the Panthers' lack of democracy, striving to make geographic and personal as well as political differences highly antagonistic. Of course, the FBI wildly succeeded in driving the New York and Algiers sections apart from Oakland headquarters. Any organization without consistent democracy is very, very unlikely to correct its own mistakes. Of course, the Panthers and the SNCC's attempt to merge the two organizations was bound to fail due to the extreme differences in the two organizations' commitments to the issue of democracy. While the Panthers paid lip service to that question, SNCC was forged in organizational democracy from its birth out of the mass movement of the sit-ins. You take a moment to visualize any multi-level party organization as a potential learning machine with huge amounts of information flowing up and down between the lines of authority and organization. Limitations on democracy then tend to encourage rank and file to censor their reports, primarily saying what they think the center wants to hear so as to stay in favor. This problem is especially aggravated when there is no forum, such as periodic party congresses, for cadre to look forward to voice without penalty honest concerns, innovative suggestions, and criticisms of what appear to be contradictions in practice, both inside and outside the organization. It is often literally an internal struggle to maintain a healthy democratic atmosphere in scientific socialist organizations, especially those without clearly defined organizational commitment to both democracy as well as centralism. In the case of the Panthers, without consistent democracy, there's very little hope of correction of other party errors. Uh, This question of democracy also showed up in the party's work with various organizations. Nationally, the Panthers' engagement with ongoing coalitions during the Revolutionary era, 66 to 71, was rather uneven. During this time, the Panthers did coalesce repeatedly with the Peace and Freedom Party in campaigns running Panthers for political office as educational campaigns, primarily for the Free Huey movement, which of course created another problem for democracy in the party, that of the cult of personality of Huey. Perhaps the Panthers' most widely known work with other organizations was the creation of the Rainbow Coalition Chicago by Deputy Chairman Fred Hampton. This is a picture of Rainbow Coalition with Bobby Rush, the deputy chairman of the Chicago Panthers at the head. Hampton had very actively organized various nationality gangs along with other left forces into the first Rainbow Coalition when he was assassinated for his success. Of course, as Panthers, we also accepted widespread support for the repression we faced, but we did not have significant initiative that built national coalitions around people's issues outside of party priorities of the People's Programs and the Panther Defense Committees. The Panthers' call for a united front against fascism in the spring of '69 started with a very dogmatic declaration, literally printing language from Georgy Dimitrov's 1936 call for the united front against fascism in Europe. This initiative quickly evolved into using the national committees to combat fascism as probationary stages for new Panther chapters. I argue that it is the duty of scientific socialists to fiercely defend the integrity of mass organizations, including united fronts, if these mass organizations are to be successful as concrete current expressions of the immediate demands of the people whom we are trying to organize and mobilize. The Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention suffered a lack of Panther commitment to give long-term leadership to the two mass gatherings that the plenary session in September and in November, the attempted meeting in Washington, D.C. These two mass gatherings answered the Panthers' call in late summer, fall of 1970. In part, the convention effort was a victim of the emerging differences between Newton and Cleaver that exploded 3 months later in the split. Whoops, where is it? Oh, here we go. Panthers' inconsistency in working in coalitions and other mass organizations. I believe I am lost on my, okay, here we go. Panthers' inconsistency in working with coalitions and other mass organizations was also the product of confusion between whether the Panther Party was a cadre organization or a mass organization. The Panthers failed to leverage that distinct yet complementary value that both have to each other when they properly utilized. A cadre organization is a small, close-knit organization of revolution, is a vanguard who are committed to a collective politics of transformation with strong and consistent activity as a membership requirement. Mass organizations are much broader groupings with minimal membership requirements, such as common employment or residence or occasional activity and/or dues paying. Yet mass organizations have great capacity for mobilizing very large numbers of people, since mass organizations are literally of the masses. Examples being unions, churches, and other single-issue, broad-based organized groups. Scientific socialists with an understanding of the interrelationship of these two kinds of organizations work in concentrated units, often labeled cells, within mass organizations to promote progressive positions and revolutionary activities of the larger groups. Ideally, this synergy leads to a broad expansion of the organization and mobilization of very large numbers of people to fight on their own behalf for transformational change in their society. Unfortunately, most of leadership in the Black Panther Party did not fully grasp the nuances of this relationship. Thus, the Black Panther Party um, operated as its own mass organization instead of working with various mass organizations, both independent and party-based, to further spread and deepen its influence. This was a manifestation of the ideological weakness of Foucault theory, the idea of doing radical things first and then expecting broad masses to copy our behavior. Part of the Panther confusion on mass and cadre organization lies in the party adoption of Foucault theory from the Cuban Revolution. Foucault theory sees the vanguard as quick-moving small military units that supposedly provide a focus for mass dissatisfaction against an unpopular government in order to provoke a mass uprising. Foucault theory's provoke a mass uprising is actually a substitution for the often slow-developing, day-to-day hard work to organize, mobilize, and then lead the masses in their upsurge. Originally articulated for rural-based insurgencies, Foucault theory is often viewed without careful analysis as the basis for success of the Cuban Revolution. 57 and 58, there was a major mass movement occurring in Cuban cities, mostly independent of and unstimulated by Castro's guerrillas in the mountains. In addition, the CIA thought they could buy influence among the Cuban rebels should they win, and thus gave material support to the 26th of July movement for a period of about 9 months, and that included weapon supply. For several reasons, then, the Cuban Revolution was a success extremely hard to duplicate in its conditions and the energy of its people's organizing in the cities. Unfortunately, Che Guevara was captured and executed while attempting to repeat this stroke of Cuban luck in Bolivia. Panthers, the Black Liberation Army, and other organizations attempted to apply Foucault theory to the urban struggle in the USA. The party embraced the idea that we should be example to the people, and that if we labored long and hard enough, the people would imitate us and complete an uprising. This theme of being an example for the people as a revolutionary tactic is widespread throughout Panther literature, especially before 1971. The orientation of the Panther during this revolutionary is strongly appealed to brothers and sisters who were ready for armed conflict with the state. In fact, Panther leadership have admitted using the gun as a tool for recruitment from the party's inception. Point 6 of the rules of the Panther Party state no party member can join any other army force other than the Black Liberation Army, with Black Liberation Army in all caps. While in the New Haven chapter, I noticed that most widely read text by far in our revolutionary library was the military writings of Mao Zedong. Mao himself would have described this as a manifestation of the purely military viewpoint. Keep in mind that our most urgent task in New Haven was defending Chairman Bobby Seale and the entire New Haven chapter against execution and the electric chair. I see this dynamic in the party as directly connected to the attraction to the BLA for many post-split Panther cadres. Some critics have labeled this approach an expression of anarchism. Now, I certainly embrace the importance of non-legal activity as a great tool for protecting the mass movement and helping it to advance as far as it can while battling to minimize fascist activity, state repression, or other interference. However, in my view, the Black Liberation Army fell victim to substituting ourselves for the masses. And many Panther cadre were either encouraged toward this view or not pushed to embrace other strategies and tactics while in the party. Most of you are aware that the party newspaper had many pictures of guns. But as Lieutenant of Information in New Haven, Connecticut, I remember prepping pamphlets straight from the National Black Panther paper on how to set up self-defense groups, which are autonomously operating military units of 3 to 5 cadre with no connection to other organizations for guidance, other than perhaps occasional mass distributed leaflets and literature. Of course, this is a recipe for prioritizing targets based on personal experiences and subjective preferences. These instead are highly coordinated and prioritized activities conceived to move the overall struggle forward from a strategic vantage point. For a visual interpretation of how to do a defense group, you should check out the Ossie Davis directed movie entitled Gordon's War from '73. And by the way, in the film, the only graffiti then visible in New York City proclaimed "Free H. Rap Brown." The issue of the purely military viewpoint could take on much different characteristics in neo-colonies. However, this mistake, in neo-colonial external colonies. However, this mistake is a frequent one, especially among insurgents without scientific socialism as a guide. Religion-based terrorism comes to mind here. We can view the split in the Black Panther Party as representing a two-sided contradiction in the Panthers' revolutionary practice. One side of the contradiction embraced a purely military viewpoint, while the other side of that contradiction is focused on the progressive, but in truth, reformist people's programs or survival programs. While these people's programs were, while these people's programs were not sharply opposed to that system, excuse me, while these people's programs were innovative and did great social good within the capitalist system, these programs were not sharply opposed to that system, nor did they functionally further the battle for self-determination in the colonies of the USA. From the free breakfast programs for children to the innovative campaign for sickle cell testing, the Panthers did great positive social programs, but these programs were not building infrastructure critically necessary to complete carefully planned and well-conceived campaigns for national determination, as did comrades fighting for independence in the former Portuguese colonies. Moreover, after the split, the remaining Panther Party moved away from advocating radical actions in revolutionary politics, from removing guns from the Panther paper to reanalyzing capitalism to becoming an anchor in the Oakland area Democratic Party politics, all the while continuing to promote its survival programs. In fact, the death of the party is more often noted as the demise of the last party program in 1982, rather than the disintegration of the party in 1980. I see that I'm actually over time, and I'm going to not present right now the national question, women question, and additional material discussing Marxism and intercommunalism. What I will say is that, in summary, it's critically important that we learn from the mistakes of the comrades that went before us. With scientific socialism, with scientific socialist criticism, self-criticism carefully applied to in-depth learning about mistakes of our past, we can advance our struggles for complete decolonization and socialism throughout the world. Okay, that concludes my Okay. We have somebody from Argentina. I see. Um, Jamal, let me just take questions now. Um, did the Black Panthers stress any kind of Pan Africanism? Why or not? The Black Panther Party stressed internationalism. The question was uh, who who are friends and who are enemies. Are the uh, the people who are battling the our enemy are our friends, in other words. And so they did not look just at the African liberation movements. As a matter of fact, they spent a huge amount of time speaking about other movements. For example, um, there there was one of the Panthers, Messiah Hewitt, got married in the party where he and his wife wore rings from a F-15 that was shot down over Hanoi, given to them by the North Vietnamese, the Vietnamese. Um, so that gives you an idea of so that and there were more active. We had more active interactions with other liberation organizations in Algeria. The Algerian um, uh, section was given the quarters where the National Liberation Front of Vietnam formerly had been. They said, you can have it. We're moving to embassy status, and so they moved to a different location. There was definitely a lot of connection with people who were in most active battle against U.S. imperialism. Okay, that's um, I would say that's the internationalism that the Panthers, that there was not a special focus on Pan African connections for the Panthers. Do I think that the Panthers would have been better off as a cadre organization? Um, or could they function? I would say definitely they would have been better off because they were mainly a cadre organization, but they tried to be a mass organization at the same time. And uh, and I think that, for just to give you an example, the Chinese had the Chinese Communist Party, but they also had the Red Army that was a mass organization of the party. I actually in '71 recommended that the party to party leadership that after I had left the party, I recommended that they consider um, um, a mass organization, a mass party organization, the Black Labor Army, and doing community works that would also have a proletarianizing function, but that was not something that they listened to. But that you know that but that so I'm I think that the contradiction of trying to be both is precisely what the Panthers encountered. You need to make a choice. You are you going to be the flock, or are you going to be the um, the disciples, so to speak? Let's see. Any other questions here that we should? Okay, so and again, I'll just finish off Duran also asked how would the question of a mass cadre organization be resolved, and I kind of covered that. You have to, if you first of all, if you're going to be a mass organization, then you just you let anybody in. You're in a union. Everybody in the workplace is part of it. You're a voting member. In NAACP, pay your dues. In the tenant union, everybody who's a renter is part of that. Um, those are mass organizations. Anybody can. The qualifications are very small. If when you're bringing people in and you're doing security on people, every single person that comes in has a security check, and you're doing a lot of training and so forth. This really more cadre organization functions that are being carried out by was what the party was doing, but then it was but it didn't understand the difference because of this preoccupation with the focal theory concept. We just, if, and it's related actually to one of the stories that Mao used talked about that was in the Red Book about the little old man who moved mountains. So you try to give people hope that eventually you can get something done. But the Panthers turned it into, okay, well, we'll do this, and the people will copy us. And are there other questions that people have? I see Mr. Durant has another. How did the Panthers relate to the question of the working class at the point of production? And the answer is, for the most part, we did not. We primarily thought of our territory that we were fighting to be self-determining about was the Black community. Now I have not been able to track this down. I've heard rumors that Fred Hampton was trying to get people to go into factory work. That's consistent with his perspective. He, by the way, is the first Panther I've been able to find that went on public records calling the party Marxist-Leninist in May of '69. But he was also, and keep in mind, he died in December '69. But to this day, one of my favorite Pantherisms is Fred Hampton's, "We're so proletarian, revolutionary, intoxicated, we cannot be astronomically intimidated." But any work in the factories was not consolidated. If that happened, that I wish it were different. Are there other questions that people have? Did I answer all the questions, or are people so angry at me that they refuse to ask any questions? Does the same go for the agriculture sector? Okay, well, let me get into that. This is so the agro. You're talking about poor people, farmers, and in developing countries, that's their vast majority of the population. And this is where Huey kind of messes up with intercommunalism, in fact, because he said, well, if it's a question of what class is going to be the majority. So once automation hits, the lumpen will be the majority. So therefore the lumpen is revolutionary class, and it does not take into account the fact that the workers have a huge amount of power to deliver blows to the functioning of the capitalist system by withdrawing the labor power. And you can see, if you want an example of how problematic that could be when it's beyond a single strike, when it's a general strike or some critical shipping facility, something is disrupted. Look at what happened with a virus. How completely jacked up the world economic system has become from the introduction of the virus. Now, and one of the examples I wanted to relate that couldn't was the general strike that won the Civil War. Du Bois talks about, calls the hundreds of thousands of black people who left the plantations when they heard the Union Army was near. That calls that a general strike, and that activity allowed the that activity allowed Lincoln to be persuaded by Frederick Douglass to have black soldiers and to issue the emancipation, which are the acts that won the war. Anyway, let me get off that. But what I'm saying is that the ability to withdraw your labor is potentially extremely important. We cannot ignore that. So let me see. Didn't the Panther leadership confuse the repression of the party with the existence of fascism? Their definition of fascism seems to be repression without a different form of capitalist rule. I would agree with that. I think that in the fall, in United Front Against Fascism was excuse me, Spring '69, of course, was called, but that was, I think that we should look at the level of repression that's leveled in a colony as a form of almost structural fascism, because it's more systematically intense than the rest of the population in other parts of the country or in the metropole experience. Yes, Ms. Matthew Pettaway, Du Bois precisely makes that point in Black Reconstruction. He's like, and I'm not aware of anybody else saying that. He's recovering the agency of slaves acting in their own interests. So that which I think is extremely important thing for him to have done. And that, at the time, of course, when it was written, they systematically ignored it. Now most of the revisionist historians are drawing from his work. Are you suggesting that organization be nationalist or Pan-Africanist, but not folk? Did I hear you correctly? No, I was not talking about whether organization be nationalist or Pan-Africanist. I would suggest that Pan-Africanism is a form of nationalism. It's a different. It sees the single unity that it's battling for differently for nationalists. Ordinary nationalist is looking to unify his people in a given geographic area, a given immediate social and cultural territory. But the Pan-Africanists are looking more expansive. They want to, in my understanding, free all people of African descent, not just. Now the question is it possible to do that well? That's a question for debate, and I would hope that someone could help me with this. I would like to know, does anyone out there know of a discussion of the Jewish Bund that a Pan-Africanist has taken a critique to show why Pan-Africanism is different from the Jewish Bund, which Lenin argued against? I'm open to the question. I just want to, but I'm not a Pan-Africanist, but I support all liberation struggles. However, I would like to see that question examined. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I think that question of the Jewish Bund and the teens, the 19 teens, etc. Basically, unfortunately, Israel is almost a bastard child of that. Let's see. Okay. I'm not okay. I'm going to have to. Not that that's a question, Miss Bedeseka. I'm not prepared to answer. Sorry, I don't know that answer to that question. to your question. In what fundamental ways do Marxism, Leninism, and intercommunalism differ? Okay, well, I would say that most people who are Marxist Leninists see the working class as the most key class, whether they're majority or not. It's their work style and their position at the point of production, which makes it extremely important for them to be in they're in a leadership. The Panthers, we one of the parts I didn't talk about. We modeled ourselves after the lumpen. The Black Panther Party singing group did national tours called the lumpen. All this happened after um, uh, Eldridge Cleaver made a call. Um, Eldridge made a call to focus on the lumpen in a pamphlet called "The Ideology of the Black Panther Party," and that changed. That a lot of things changed after that. And Huey did not disagree with that. He kind of extended it with his work on intercommunalism, because for Huey's intercommunalism, he was thinking this. Keep in mind, this is 1970. He's saying automation is going to get rid of most of our jobs, and so the majority of people will be lumpen proletariat. So, so that's a big difference from Marxist Leninism. Most Marxist Leninists are thinking primarily in terms of a working class based focus on, even if the working class is a minority. That doesn't mean you're not engaging in a people's war like Mao Zedong. That doesn't mean that you're not ignoring um, the other classes. You have to have coalition with the other classes through the various mass organizations and recruiting the individual cadre from all those respective sectors into your organization in order to be able to um, uh, carry out your uh, your revolutionary hopes. So now, am I over time? Um, okay, yeah, other questions. Okay. Is there a fundamental difference between recovering land and sovereignty in the anti-colonial origins of Pan-Africanism and development of Israel? Well, I'm okay. That's pretty far off of the Black Panthers, although I'm I've been consistently in support of the article that I remember D.C. Cox, the Field Marshal D.C. Cox, writing about Zionism, um, uh, being equal racism. I can't remember the exact formula, but the Panthers took a strong stand on the question of Palestine, and I'm sorry, but I don't see I don't see the connection in terms of um, Pan-Africanism and the development of Israel. But I think that it's rather than looking at the state, we look at the class that retained control, and the 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 class that retained control was the bourgeoisie, the capitalists, and I think that, and that's where there can be a question. How do Pan-Africanists deal with the question of the various classes? what are their class analyses, and how do they carry them out in their work? That would be what I would. Um, um, I think there's not been a resurgence in the Black Panther Party. Well, there have been resurgences of the Black Panther Party. There have been ever since the 90s. There have been repeated attempts of people to create organizations like the party. Um, they they tended to be more nationalist in many cases than the Black Panther Party was. So therefore, and by when you're nationalist, you kind of cut yourself off from some of your allies and sympathetic folks who happen to be in the media. Um, so the Panthers, there's a number of different fractions that call themselves the Panthers. Now, the personal or um, the motivation of people, I'm not going to get into, but I mean that has there is an appeal to that. But the Panthers were at a particular time in history, then they caught the eye of the country, both white and black. They captured the imagination in a way that that it's not going to happen again, because it was, remember, this was 2 years. No, excuse me. This was 6 months. The Panthers were founded not even 6 months after the Declaration of Black Power. And it was 2 years later with the death of King that the question of nonviolence became fully um, discredited. I would say as a tactic to inevitably pursue. Anyway, I'm running on here. Are there other questions that I have not addressed? Um, I think to go back to again to this question of resurgence, there has been attempts at resurgence, but in the first place, the party was not conceived in a highly planned and well strategized fashion in the first place, and so therefore the the attempts to copy it have not have met similar uh, fates. But they didn't have the media soup that to take advantage of that the Panthers did, because they were the first out of the gate. I think that our session must be over by now, right? Well, how do we support political prisoners? Well, that's I think it's an important question, because I think it's important to have a movement to support them and build that movement and do political education in the process. But it also does raise a question of how do we talk about the shortcomings of our movement? And I'm talking about shortcomings of the movement that, um, unfortunately, some of the people in jail are still in jail um, are facing the consequences. I think it's important to talk about these things, because I think the sacrifice that they made, the sacrifice that people I worked with in New Haven, like Twyman Myers, made, who was in the BLA and died in a gun battle with police. I mean, to me, the best way I can support them is to try to point out how this how the struggle should be done better and differently, along with um, verbal and monetary support when possible. But that's a different take than some people have. But I'm still interested in the liberation movement being successful, and that's I think the issue. Okay, so we have a good debate going on here on the question of Israel. That's fine by me. Other, but by the way, let me direct you again to my website, blackpantheronline.com. There are free and low cost resources there, and the site exists to promote my ability to speak to high school and college students on uh, on the question of the Black Panther Party. I find a lot of the time they want to know about how I got in the organization and what was the process that took place. But nevertheless, I try to talk about political lessons and not at the level of this discussion certainly, but I do enjoy that work. So so if I have not, I've answered, like I said, I've answered a lot of questions, or, or nobody who thinks they would have an argument with me has come to our session. In any event, um, thank you all for coming. If unless there's other questions, and I'm certainly available um, afterwards to discuss. Make sure I got all the questions. Right. Let me go back to I will be talking about this on Saturday on the intercommunalism. Um, Intercommunalism is a form of Marxism. Um, you use dialectics. However, as I said, I think it's a flawed interpretation. Um, but there's a lot of Marxists out there that do the same thing. Uh, and the Marxism has diverged since World War One. We have a whole category of people I would call observational Marxists that are primarily um, in the universities, and they write, say, "Oh, I like this idea. Let me put it out." And the standard for observational Marxism is different. Oh, this is an interesting idea. Let's look at it. Whereas transformation Marxists have a much higher standard. It's is this helping us um, make a revolution, make a sweet social transformation, so that the people who uh, are seen as leading figures in Marxism, Leninism, or any form of scientific socialism, they've made substantial contributions. And even though I don't think most of them are explicitly Marxist-Leninists, I argue that the Marxism has moved to there's a whole level of anti-colonial Marxism that needs to be more clearly recognized. From Mao Zedong to Ho Chi Minh to to Amilcar Cabral, Franz Fanon, Kwame Nkrumah. All those are anti-colonial Marxists. Huey has attempted to, with intercommunalism, to join that group with his material. But again, it's I see it as deeply flawed, and so I figured I need to speak out and write about it. Oh, and Diane Enobar says fantastic provocations. Huh? Well, uh, nobody ever accused me of being tame when it comes to politics. I'll say that much I know. So if there are no further questions or comments, then I will. We can go. You can go to another session, and anybody who wants to speak with me at another time, again, you can reach me through my website, blackpantheronline.com. One word, blackpantheronline.com. Take care. Or I say take it like to take it, but uh, there's a couple of friends of mine up there. I'm sure we'll have other conversations about this conversation in the very, very near future. Take it light, but take it.
You have one new voice message and one saved message. You have one voicemail message which is due for deletion. The message must be resaved to prevent automatic deletion. Saved message, due for automatic deletion.
Hi, Charles. James McDaniel with the Prostate Cancer Group. Phone call.
Message resaved. New message.
Hi, Professor Pinderhughes, Professor Bridgeforth. Would you give me a call, please? Thank you.
To replay this.
Professor Pinderhughes?
Yes, my apologies for not taking a call.
Thank you.
I was literally speaking at an international conference when you called.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Listen, I was calling you because I was trying to determine what is it that you're requesting.
Okay.
You indicated about something being at West Caldwell. Whatever West Caldwell does has nothing to do with us. All right? They are, they set up what they want, and if it runs, it runs. If it doesn't, it doesn't. All right? So whatever has got a West Caldwell designation, I don't even address. Okay?
Okay.
That's the first thing.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so I think that was about the only thing you were asking about. And you say you have an issue with we switch CW1. No. Whatever's West Caldwell, that's their schedule.
That's their schedule. Well, what I did note, regardless of what we do on West Caldwell, I did note that there's a class that lists. I think it's S2V. That is, it's supposed to be a late start. That's the code for late start virtual. But it's got 4 students in it when I looked. It's being listed as a fall 1 course, and students are signing up for it.
Oh, I see. So in other words, it's really a fall 2 course.
It was a fall 2 course, and what I was trying to I pointed out that there is still another virtual class that is listed as different class. It's listed. I think it's listed as a LS and a number, but it is but it's virtual. So that there's still a virtual class in late start as well. So I was pointing out that we need to do some you need to just make a decision on how to handle that, since the students already signed up.
All right.
I was volunteering to I was thinking that West Caldwell has 0 classes.
The only real issue here is we need to change the time of the course, correct? Because you said you have here, I suggested Social 101 S2V have its class time shortened to 80 minutes per class, running from 9/1/22 to 12/22.
Yes.
As a fall course.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting. Yes.
All right. I will send this upstairs and have them make the corrections.
Okay.
Hopefully get to it. They're a little slow in getting to things, but I'll get it back upstairs. Okay. All right.
Okay. Well,
thank you. Also, I sent you another email today with all faculty, because they gave us a list of students who have been approved for financial aid, and the students have not registered yet. So they want us to look at our disciplines and call those students, because our enrollment is only 2,400 students. There's no way in the world we can open these doors in September with 2,400 students.
I got you.
But it appears that they've got, I think they said over 2,000 students they've approved for financial aid, and they've broken them down according to disciplines. So, I sent it on to everybody, and
I'll work with Dr. Calfani on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. One additional question. Okay. The lack of any registration in the West Caldwell class concerned me, and then I realized that with the with the with the commu- with the campus closed, that there's a lot of some students may be just going on to a different school.
Yeah, we're facing that. But their view is once the new campus opens up, and they are really moving rapidly with their campus up there.
Well,
Their
then,
view is that once it opens up, that'll change. So they're trying to start to put together some strategies now to start to engage their community. But the courses that they are running, they run in the vocational school up there.
I see.
Now, which people don't even want to go to the vocational school. But, I understand from a political perspective why they have to do it, because how can you spend $22 million of taxpayers' money and you can't even show that anybody's taking any classes, even in a vocational school? But that's where they're doing. They don't want to offer those courses virtually. They want to make the students come to that vocational school. But here again, that's their problem. They'll handle it. They spending $22 million up there. They will handle it. And to be very truthful with you, that building is going to be so phenomenal that people that live in Montclair, West Orange, and places like that aren't going to want to come to the Newark campus at all.
Well,
they're going to flood that building up there. It's going to be really phenomenal.
Well, that may be true. But in the meantime, I don't think I want to teach in person, and that's actually not.
No, you don't have to. I asked you to make up your schedule.
And I did, but I'm asking for a revision of one course in this case now.
Aren't there enough courses already that you can teach virtually that without any revision of courses?
No. I'm not asking for. I misspoke. I'm asking for a revision of my schedule. That's all, of one course.
Yeah,
and I'm asking to switch from the CW1 to.
Yeah, you're getting me confused. You're getting me very confused here.
I apologize.
You're telling me you suggest that Social 101 S2V have its class time shortened.
Yes.
Right, so that's one thing you're asking.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. So so that's one thing you're asking. Isn't there something already in the schedule that you can teach without me having to do all of the revisions and stuff? I mean, we got tons of stuff that's available for you to get 5 classes. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm not sure. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure what you're asking. Did you assign yourself a class in West Caldwell?
That was one of the 5 I picked, was that CW1, because I thought, this will be.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in other words, you assigned yourself a class in West Caldwell.
I asked for that because I thought it was going to be virtual. And I think.
Okay, well, it's not going to be virtual, so that's off the table.
Okay,
so what else do you want?
So then
I can't change. The issue becomes this: I can't change a West Caldwell class.
I'm not asking you to change the class. I'm just asking you to change my schedule of which class I teach.
Yeah, so you tell me what you want to put in that class.
And I will take the virtual S2V.
Okay, well then all you have to do is send me okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to change the Social 101 S2V.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we want to shorten it to 80 minutes per class. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it's scheduled currently as a late start, we want to make it.
No, it's not. It has a late start code, but it's actually scheduled in fall 1. So that students have signed up. 4 students have signed up because they can't even sign up for a late start yet, right? But they signed up. 4 students have signed up.
This is an error. They did something similar like this in psychology.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So that's okay, I'm volunteering to work with it too, and I'll even contact the students to help them understand what's going on.
Okay, so what I will do is I'll send this upstairs, and I will indicate that Social 101 section S2V, all right, is as scheduled for the fall semester. However, the hours that you've scheduled it for appear to be for late start hours.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so therefore we're requesting that Social 101 S2V have the time shortened to 80 minutes per class,
Mm-hmm.
running from 9/1/22 to 12/21/22
Mm-hmm.
as a fall course.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
and
and we will notify the students that are registered of the necessary adjustment.
and separately, I'd like to switch that one CW1 course to that in Banner to
Which
the
CW1
okay,
course?
the CW on site right now. I have 5 courses, including 219, and the Social 101 CW1 is one of those 5. And so I'm asking.
No. Here again, we don't touch Caldwell courses. We can't. I need you to look at courses that are already here on campus and make your change with those courses.
And I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, so you're telling me that you want me to change Social 101 CW1.
I want you to withdraw me from teaching it and put me in.
Okay, all right. This is what I need you to do. Put together your new schedule as you want it to be and
Okay.
get that to me.
I will do that.
Okay.
I will do that.
Because I was getting ready to ask everybody anyway that, if you've made any changes whatsoever in your schedule, please get it to me so that Pat and I on Monday, what we're going to try to do is try to go through and put everything in Banner, change anything people want changed so that people have exactly what they want.